So it was a very hot day today, reaching 44 degrees Celsius, aka very damn hot for my Fahrenheit Americans. Now, the point is, what's actually happening during these conditions to the body? How is exercise and physical activity and performance negatively, adversely, or positively impacted by heat? I'm going to break down basic mechanisms, basic physiology of the body in relation to thermoregulation and exercise. To start off with, I'm not an expert on this topic. I'm going to be referring to my notes. I'm summarizing the information I've been learning through exercise physiology. So let me just get that straight. Not an expert. Don't mean the information ain't relevant here though. For example, okay, most people know standard body temperature of homeostatic body temperature in the body is 37 degrees, which is 38.6 Fahrenheit for my Americans, right? And we know that the body reaches critical temperatures where protein and enzymes are broken down, and even death can occur at 45 degrees Celsius, which is 113 Fahrenheit for my Americans. And for most people, there's 4 different components to heat loss. We're going to be talking about evaporation. I'll put diagrams on the screen to explain the other methods, but we're going to talk about evaporation predominantly because that accounts for 70 to 80% of the heat loss that occurs in the body. So when it's hot as butt out here, most of the heat loss that is occurring through the body is through evaporation. What is evaporation? Like, even that word, it's like we understand it, but do we actually understand it? So evaporation, let's skip forward right here. Evaporation is basically a water being turned from a gas to a gas, pardon me, right? For example, sweating, you get, obviously, sweat is partly made up of water, and that evaporates to cool your body down. It draws heat off the skin, but then what happens? This is what I'm talking about right here. This is the interesting thing that people don't necessarily understand. And the pressure between the air and the skin helps facilitate and remove that heat from the body. So it's the pressure gradient difference that is key here. And then we know, but evaporation is dependent on heat and humidity. Humidity is a very poor environment for thermoregulation. What was the humidity today? Let's look it up. From what I saw, the humidity was only about 40 to 50% today, approximately, in certain regions of Melbourne, right? So not that high. Humidity creates a poor environment for thermoregulation or for heat regulation because there's less of a difference now of a pressure gradient between the air and the skin. So that means there's more moisture in the air and less water gets evaporated off the skin, right? Let's move on from that. All right, really quickly, let's talk about the temperature feedback loop. What is actually happening when our body experiences heat? How does it maintain homeostasis? Basically balance, equilibrium in the body. How does it not overheat? So it has this kind of, put it on the screen again, it has this feedback loop mechanism that keeps it all in check, that basically when a temperature, your body experiences a heightened or drop in temperature, it's going to try and bring the body back. And it does this from the receptors in the skin, telling then the hypothalamus, which controls, again, temperature and hormonal control, go into the effectors, which is just a category of responses that are happening in the body, telling the sweat glands to obviously secrete more sweat, the blood vessels to dilate, vasodilate, and the cardiovascular system to increase stroke volume, drop stroke volume, increase heart rate, because we're not as efficient when in heat conditions. So stroke volume, meaning the amount of blood pumped out of the heart per beat, less efficient, right? And then increase in adrenaline, which which aids the increase in heart rate and trying to keep our body, keeping the exercise intensities that we're at, utilizing various hormones like adrenaline. And then we get the response is heat loss and evaporation in an attempt to get back to homeostasis. Obviously, it doesn't always work like this, because if you keep pushing your body in heat, then it's going to take longer to reach homeostasis. It's going to reach, depending on the intensity and the duration of your activity and the conditions, is going to dictate how far off you are this homeostatic level.